Going back to the first couple weeks and months of this season, were you feeling okay? Was everything just a normal hockey season so far?
Yeah. I was feeling good. I had a good summer of training, and I came in good shape for camp, and had a good camp. And first few months of the year, it's this was my 11th season, so things were progressing, and the guys were, as is kind of typical in the American League, we had a younger group, and we were coming together as a group, and guys were kind of figuring out their roles and everything. And then everything kind of changed that morning in December.
So when you talk about that morning, there was like just no lead into this, you weren't feeling weird, everything was normal, and then one morning, tell me, before you get into the diagnosis of what actually happened, like what happened to you in the moment? What'd you feel? Who was there? How did it happen?
Yeah, so it was the morning of December 10th. I woke up in my apartment here in San Jose. My wife was actually at home in Boston already. She had been home for a wedding, and she was just going to stick around for the holidays instead of coming back out and back. So I woke up, I was by myself. Just felt the left side of my body just felt weird is the only way I can describe it. It wasn't paralyzed. It wasn't, it just felt off. Like it felt almost pins and needles almost. And so I actually called my wife when I woke up, and I was like, something's weird. I don't know, what's going on here. So she said, don't skate, don't be an idiot, don't push it. And I said, all right, yeah. So then I took a shower, made breakfast, and it was getting worse. And, it started to go numb a little bit, the left side of my body. And so I called the trainer, and I had been by myself since I had spoken with my wife. I wasn't talking to anybody. So when I called the trainer and he answered and I went to talk to him, my speech was like, it was completely slurred. You can barely understand what I was trying to say.
And he could tell something was really wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right away. He knew something was up. And so the slurred speech, and he said, hold on one second. And he called the doctor, and literally 30 seconds later, the doctor called me. Same thing. It's a frustrating feeling when I'm trying to describe what's going on, but my speech won't allow me to portray what I'm feeling like.
You couldn't get the words out, or you're saying it's just like your mouth wasn't working with your brain?
Yeah, no, my brain was fine. I was crystal clear. Okay. It just, my mouth wasn't, for whatever reason, the signal from my brain to my mouth wasn't working, and I couldn't say the words.
Wow.
And it sounded very slurred. So the doctor called me, Dr. Yu, and he said, you got to get to the hospital right away. I think he didn't tell me, he didn't say the word stroke. I'm pretty sure he probably knew what was going on. Right. He didn't want to scare me.
Right.
So I grabbed an Uber. Actually, I didn't do the.
It's even smarter to not.
Yeah.
drive.
Well, I was on my. Yeah. It's without getting into. I don't want to scare anyone, but
sure.
I was. Thinking about going down to get my car, and I stepped out in the hallway, and I was kind of like ping-ponging off both sides of the hallway because my body it was getting worse.
Wow.
And
really fast.
Yeah, it struck fast, and it got worse in a hurry. So got the Uber, got to the hospital. Same thing there. The Uber dropped me off at the wrong door, so I had to walk to the emergency room, and I was kind of zigzagging and all over the place, and I couldn't speak. And so I got there, and the woman at the front desk, when you check in, kind of was giving me the side eye because I'm sure she didn't know I was I'm walking erratically in my speeches. I'm sure she thought something else was going on.
Right.
But pretty quickly after kind of slurring my words out, she was able to kind of understand what was going on. And as soon as they, figured out that it was, pretty likely to be a stroke, everything happened really fast because the quicker that you can receive treatment, the better chance of a full recovery. So they kind of whisked me away to the back and got me a quick CT scan of my head to make sure there was no bleeding in there. And there wasn't. So they were able to give me this new drug that is basically a blood clot buster,
okay.
Very, very powerful blood thinner. So they had to check my brain first, because if anything was bleeding, and then they gave me the blood thinner, then it would, things would not work out well. So that came back clean. They were able to give me the drug. And then honestly, in a couple hours, my symptoms pretty much cleared up.
Wow.
Which I'm very lucky for. But the scary part about it is that clot buster only works within 4 hours of the onset of the symptoms. So luckily, when I first went in, I got in the hospital about 8:30, 9 o'clock. they said, "What time did you wake up?" I said 6:30, and they said, "Did you have the symptoms?" I said, "Yes." So they didn't know when the symptoms started, so they won't give you that drug unless they know it was in the last 4 hours. But then I kind of just remembered. I was like, well, I got up at 5:30 to go to the bathroom, and I was fine. So they said, well, okay. So that as soon as they heard that, they said they could get me the drug because they knew at 5:30 I was okay.
You weren't timed out.
Correct.
Wow.
Exactly. I was still within that 4-hour time frame. So they were able to give it to me, and like I said, after they give you that drug, you have to stay. They have to
monitor you.
Yeah, just to make sure nothing else bleeds. So I was there for a couple hours after the symptoms pretty much went away. I was there for 2 days. So they had to keep an eye on me, and then they did some tests to see why I had it. And it turned out that I had a hole in the wall between the ventricles of my heart. And for whatever reason, a blood clot that most likely originated in my legs went through my bloodstream into my heart, and then instead of getting cleaned out in the lungs, it went through the hole in my heart and got shot out with the blood that pumps out to your extremities and went up into my brain. And so I think the term is ischemic stroke. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it was basically a clot that clogged the blood vessel that goes to my left cerebellum, which is why the left side of my body was experiencing symptoms in my speech.
So they did, in the end, diagnose it as a stroke?
Yep.
I mean, that's textbook what happened to you. And you're
33. Yeah.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Right.
Because your mind probably says, I'm not old enough to be going through stroke or heart attack or whatever else in your panicked thoughts, right? No matter what, your age would probably be ruling out all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was one of those things.
Yes, and my age, and I would also say that
a good health. How about that?
Something like that.
Right.
And I also, before this happened to me, when I thought stroke, I thought, in the movies when somebody clutches their chest and falls down. It's not like a heart attack type deal. It's
not progressive. It's more instant. But to you, it was progressive.
To me, I was walking, and I was having a stroke while I was walking, and it was like, that doesn't seem to make sense, but I've learned a lot, and like I said, the response time from Dr. Yu was really what saved me.
So, how do you get to the point of realizing that hockey's done as a player? I imagine you enlisted as many opinions as you could. Was it your decision? Do you feel like somebody was like, "Hey, we love you too much. We can't let you do this"? How did that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when it happened, the prognosis moving forward was, it wasn't out of the question that I could come back and play. I was going to have to be on blood thinners for the near future.
Okay.
And then hopefully, once they have to do I had a heart surgery to fix the hole. And so I need to be on the blood thinners for 3 months to make sure nothing clots around the device that's in there. So as long as I'm on the blood thinners, I can't play, because if you get cut or if you get a hit to the head and you start to bleed, the blood thinners make it very hard to stop bleeding.
Can't stop bleeding, right.
Correct. So basically this season was a wash. And then, if everything had gone well and I'm able to come off the blood thinners, it wasn't out of the question that I could come back and play. But I was 33 years old. I've been in the minors the last 5 years, and that coupled with the day I had the stroke, there was a coaching shakeup in the Sharks.
I recall December 11th.
Yeah, right.
I was watching, which opened up a door for you.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was watching the game in the hospital bed, and on the bottom I saw the change, and so I didn't know at the time, but our coach Roy Sommer then went up to the Sharks, which in turn, now it was just Jimmy Bono and Mike Chason down with the Barracuda, so it was just a 2-man staff, and they also took Ricci and Nabby. So there was 2 guys that were previously was 5. So there was a little bit of a opportunity there, and I figured it was the right time to transition. Like I said, it wasn't out of the question I could come back and play, but at the same time, being 33. Playing in the minors as long as I have, coupled with an opportunity to start a second career and gain some experience for life moving forward, it was too good to pass up. And the Sharks were great. Joe Will and Doug Wilson were both extremely supportive. Anything I needed, anytime I needed. I went home. I was right around the holidays. Went home, spoke with my family and people that are important to me and got their insights, and also hockey people that are important to me. You know, a lot of the scouts for the Sharks and people that I've met along the way, and kind of just picked their brains and said, you know, listen, this is where I'm at. You know, I'm thinking about moving on. You know, do you think that I'll kick myself in 6 months? And the answer was almost a resounding move on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Not in a mean way or disrespectful, but they were like, you know, you'd be crazy to pass this up. You know, this opportunity wouldn't come along.
Too many stars were aligning here, right? To help you make that transition. And I think a lot of pro athletes at one point or another struggle with the ultimate final decision. Am I done?
Mm-hmm.
Is this it? Should I move on? But I mean, even though so many things pointed at, hey, Johnny, do this.
Right.
You probably still tie to, I'm a player. It's the one thing I've only ever known.
Yeah.
Like detaching yourself and making that ultimate move, even when everything says go the other way. It's hard, right?
It's very hard because being a hockey player is part of your identity. You know, in the summer or you know, you're at home and you're the hockey player. That's who you are. It's part of who you are. And to move on from that is difficult. And like you said, you know, even something like a situation like that I was in, you know, it's still, you still have that competitive drive, and it's almost like, you know, these people are saying, you know, you'll have a hard time coming back, and my first instinct is like, oh yeah,
watch
like,
me.
I'll show
I know,
you.
right.
But and then at the same time after that, I take a step back and I'm like, don't be an idiot. Why would you do that? Why would you push yourself?
Too much life to live at 33, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to miss. You don't want to jeopardize the remaining majority of your life.
Exactly.
You know, for this decision.
Exactly.
So from captain of the team to behind the bench, and I got to say, watching you today in person, I'm thinking, you know, he must be going through a lot of weird experiences. Leader of the team, right? So in a way, you've always been kind of looked at as somebody special, but now you literally went from playing alongside some of these guys to coaching them. How, and it's early, but how has that transition been?
It was awkward at first, I'll be honest. You know, it was strange to be in the locker room and literally the next day in the coach's room.
No stall, go right to the coach's room, right?
Right. I went from equipment to a tracksuit in practice, and it's strange, it was a strange feeling. But like you said, I'm 33. The next oldest guy on the team was 25. So I was always a little bit older, and you know, don't get me wrong, I was a part of the team, but you know, I was always kind of filling that role of, you know, a leadership type role. So that made the transition a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm liking it. It enables me to stay close to the game, and that's something that, you know, I'll be forever grateful for the Sharks for allowing me to do. And I think what I'm trying to do is use this as an opportunity to deliver a message to the guys, like, hey, you know, I'm not that detached from this. You know, I was with you guys a few months ago. You know, I'm not doing this to be, you know, a coach and be a tough guy, be a hardo. I'm telling you this stuff because, you know, I want you to succeed. You know, and I want you guys to be able to play in the NHL and have that feeling, and call your parents and tell them you're playing your first game. And, you know, I'm telling you this because I care, and
relatability.
You know, that's exactly. I guess that's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I think it lands with them because I think I still have that trust because I was part of that locker room so recently. So, as much as anybody could look at the Sharks this season and say, "Oh, rough hockey year and everything's gone wrong," and I'm going to say this because I know you're humble. You probably won't say this. You really had a rough year. Nothing like no Shark story of this year compares to the actual life story. Were you gonna become a coach anyway? I mean, I thought about it. I definitely thought about it. I was at the point in my career where I was on 1-year deal. So after every season, I took a step back, took a couple weeks, went home, and was like, you know, what am I thinking? And I had poked around in other industries. You know, during the summer, I'll go into my buddies' offices and see what they do and see if I would like it. And so I was keeping my options open. I wasn't committed to anything, but you know, like I said, the opportunity here is something that it would be silly of me not to take advantage of.
Am I crazy to think that the worst thing that could happen to you turned out maybe to be one of the best things that could have happened to you, and it fast-tracked you into what you were destined to do anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, obviously when it first happened, I was kind of down, and rightfully so. I was disappointed. I was, struggling with the decision, and now after a couple months of coaching and seeing that there's an opportunity for a second career, that's kind of a good way to turn things around for me. Yeah, I would agree with that.
How's the coaching going to go for you? I mean, you feel probably like so much as a player.
Yeah.
And now you're on the other side of being in the coach's room and what maybe they go through. And what's the learning curve of being a coach like?
Well, the hours are a lot longer. I can tell you that. I spend a lot more hours at the rink, a lot more video.
Right.
But I like it. I do. It has, at least not yet. It hasn't gotten to the point where I'm watching video and I'm rolling my eyes and saying this is so tedious.
Yeah.
I like the job. Like it doesn't feel like a job. It still feels like something that I love because I love the game of hockey, and I think I care for the guys, and I think that's for me that's what makes me like the job is that I feel and I hope they feel like I care about them and I want success for them. And, that's basically what drives me is getting those guys a chance to play in the NHL. That's what it's about for me now. And, I hope the message comes across that way.
Well, maybe the hardest thing for you from here on out is just, the suit game, right? Because players can wear the same one to the rink and nobody notices. Now you're captured behind the bench. You got to diversify the wardrobe.
Exactly. I know. I had to get a haircut because you can't wear a hat.
You got to clean it up as a coach a little bit.
Shave every day.
Well, thanks for sharing this with me. Like I said, I think these are the kind of stories that people need to hear sometimes, and. I mean, you'll never forget any of this.
No,
this is it,
definitely not. Yeah, it was, I won't say a good way, but it kind of gave me a little finality to hockey. Like you said, a lot of guys towards the end come to it. How am I going to know when I'm done?
Right.
If I'm slowing down, is anybody going to tell me, or am I going to have to? And so something like this is kind of it's a clean, clean way to kind of.
And there's no, you had the procedure. Mm-hmm. You're good? Does it work like that? Or how they monitor you?
Hopefully.
Or how does it work?
So they actually, there was a hole, as I said, so they went up my leg, through the vein in my leg, and put a device in there to clamp the hole. And it takes about...
Wait, they went through your leg to get to your heart?
Yeah, there's a vein.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was actually... And I was actually sort of... with it during the surgery.
So you watched it. Oh, great.
I could see what they were doing. I couldn't feel anything.
Oh, man.
Which is a creepy feeling. But it took 45 minutes, which is crazy to put some high-tech device in. Then my body basically builds cells around the device to fill in the hole.
Wow.
So that'll be 3 months, and they'll check it again. And as long as the device is there, hasn't shifted or anything, I should be able to come off the blood thinners and live a normal life.
Wow.
Which will be good.